Well, thank you very much, Jeb, for that little jam. I hope you all enjoyed it. We're back. Episode 4 of Licks and Tricks. I am your host, Ethan Mackowick. Today I have a very, very special guest. Very good friend of mine.
Sup, guy?
Yeah, this is Giovanni Orsini, Jebediah, Jeb, whatever you want to call him. The man, the wizard, the boss man of SCDC. He runs the thing.
Here.
Yeah. So, very good friend of mine. He plays bass in a band that I play in, Daisy Chain, but he plays guitar in a band, Fortune Teller, and we're talking about guitar today. It's licks and tricks, as you know. So we're gonna talk about guitar. So what's kind of stuff like you were doing, and that's, you know, we were playing Phantom Shift, by the way, by Fortune Teller. What's kind of like the stuff you were working with, like a couple licks you can show us?
Well, for Fortune Teller, for writing with to make it easier because it's just the two of us, it's usually just power chords, and I'll usually play just all major power chords because something about the major third in there with it, it's kind of Sabbathy, but also like if you listen to like Ty Segall and like Fuzz and a lot of garage
Very
rock
Ty
does
Segall
that.
type.
Yeah, it's just like almost as like more of an uplifting. So like it's evil, but it's more of like a rock punch. It feels like. So
if you made those chords all minor, it would have a completely different feel to it.
Sound pretty terrible.
Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah, it's not
pretty
like garbage,
nasty.
But
yeah, like for like soloing, it's like I usually just start off with like some kind of like a bend or like a lead up or a slide. So it'll be like. It's usually all revolves around a pentatonic because that's all I know theory-wise.
But you were playing some interesting stuff there. You did like, if I could, I guess we'll go, like you're doing like something like that.
Yeah, so like at least with a pentatonic, I like screwing around with. I don't even know what it's called. I just like heard it in a Hendrix song where like he does a lot of like soloing over chords. So I kind of just try to do that too a lot, where it'll be like. So if the normal pentatonic is just like, I like to throw in whatever the half steps down are from like this B, or I mean not the B, but the
D flat.
Yeah. And then I'll do that on the B string too.
Yeah.
So instead of just, it'll be like.
Yeah, it just adds some like flavor
And
you know,
like
changes it up.
Exactly. And then like you can screw around with a lot of octaves with that, so I can like and like do little chord shapes with it, but at the same time.
What do you do just there? Let's go through.
So like the way I look at it is like with like a scale is like you have all these notes and like I try to do weird combinations of them at the same times, like in the middle of soloing like a chord. So like if I'm like
So what's
so
that last thing?
So like right there, like on this D flat, if you hit, and then you just like, and then, and so like I'll try to look at it as like if I'm in like trying to make a phrase or if I'm in a part of a solo where I'm hitting mostly like those 6 notes, I'll think of like how can I pair those together just by themselves. So I'll be like,
you're basically making double stops.
Yeah,
out
exactly.
of just like any 2 notes, because like there's classic ones that we talked about on like the last episode or like the episode before that, where you have like the classic blues ones that are like.
Yeah,
but you're like applying that to like other parts of the scale.
I guess.
Yeah.
I've never
really
I've never like thought about it, but
yeah.
It's
well,
like,
I mean, we're trying to explain, you know, what you're doing
for sure. But it's really fun to too. Like if I am doing like just this classic, everybody does it lick, like you know, that kind of a deal. A lot of people will go like, you know, stuff like that. But it's fun to just.
So what are you doing? There you go.
So you're not going back up. You're just so it's just it's not a hammer pull.
You're cutting off like that last little note there,
and it's kind of jarring. But if it's fuzzed out and it's fast, it's just like, and you can like I don't know.
Yeah. You're like, a down and dirty guitar. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Exactly.
As long as it's cool.
Play fast and fuzzy so they can't tell when you screw up.
So we should talk about, first and foremost, because Fortune Teller is a two-piece band, and you have a pretty inventive way of working around being in a two-piece band to make it thick. So why don't you, I know what it is, so I want the people to hear, what are you doing with pedals predominantly?
So pedals, I have this Boss OC3 Super Octave, and it's supposed to be like an octave on a guitar. Like you send a guitar signal through and it sends like a low octave to beef it up a little bit.
Yeah.
But what I do with it is I'll turn the effect all the way wet and turn the actual guitar output signal all the way down, so all you're getting is like that sub-octave bass really hard, and then I just send that straight to my bass amps.
So you have a different cable going to just the bass amp.
So there's like two rigs set up, like a normal guitar rig or like the guitar amp I use, like the Twin, and then I use these GK MB115s.
You can see behind him.
Yeah, those guys right there. But
it makes going to a gig kind of strenuous.
Yeah, me and JJ have fun with that. Ain't that right, boy? But
he's behind the camera.
And then I'll just bypass, because it's got two outs, like the direct out for the actual wet signal, and then it has just an output for the wet signal, and it has a direct out, like a bypass at the same time. And so, like, what I'll do with that is turn the output of the effect all the way up, so it's only sub bass.
Yeah.
And then I just send the rest of it through my pedal chain to the guitar.
guitar.
So, like, the guitar is getting all the effects. And
so your
it's just
sub bass is not getting the effects.
All it is strictly a sub bass cymbal.
Yeah, give us a little sample of that.
Can you turn that Twin on standby? Because I can show you just strictly so like it's got no tonal character at all.
Mm-hmm. You just feel it.
All that it is just those low frequencies. So like, can you turn that guy back on? So by itself it sounds bad, but like if I'm trying to pair it with a chord, it's almost like I'm just playing this, like it's one thing, but it's just filled out really well.
And you almost never really use that clean.
No, I always keep it dirty, especially for Fortune Teller, because if it is like a really clean signal, I can't really control the volume of the bass that much. Like, it's always really powerful, like, in comparison.
Yeah.
So, like, it's a little too thick if it's just clean.
Yeah,
but with, like, the fuzz and the drives and stuff, I think it lends itself really well to fill it out. Because, like, a lot of fuzzes, if you focus on the mids to make it a little more punchy, so it's not as farty sounding, like, sometimes the bass will kind of cut out a little bit.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to do a two-piece, it can get a little jarring.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like... And another fun thing I like to do sometimes is, like, if I hit, like, an open E string, it'll keep playing it.
Tell us before you play it what you're doing.
Right, so, like... If I'm going to try to solo sometimes, if there's not too many changes or I'm just soloing over a drone, what I can do is just, like, hit a low E note with the bass, like, but then I can solo over top as long as I don't mute the bottom.
Because
it's, like, a really psychedelic, and, like, I kind of started doing that because, like, I always like to screw around with, like, if I hit, like, an open A string and then play its octave on the 7th on the string up, it's really fun to, like, screw around. It's kind of the same theory behind, like, the double stop with adding those notes in, where I can be like...
That's an interesting thing. Let's kind of go through what you're doing.
It's almost kind of like listening to a lot of old Beatles, like, sitar stuff.
Yeah. It's very, like, because, like, it's like a kind of a drone. Because a sitar has a drone and people don't know, and then you play melodic notes over top of it. So you're hitting the low A string, and you're hitting the A up top on the D string, and you're kind of just changing, and then you're just changing that melody note on top of it to get, like, different sounds.
And as long as you're being constant with the rhythm on that bottom A string, you can screw around. So, like, I'll always just be going like... And then, like... If you want to do crazier stuff, like, it's kind of hard to just train your right hand to do stuff, like a constant thing. But if you want to change the rhythm of your solo to just have it be your left hand that's doing it, it's like... And then this also fits in really well with what I was doing before with the pentatonic scale, because I can keep that going and then...
So to break down a little bit what you're kind of doing right there is he's keeping your finger kind of planted at home base on the pentatonic main area you keep your pointer finger.
Yeah.
And then you're using the other fingers to create embellishments on it.
And as long as you're keeping the rhythm of it, you can I like to hold a chord shape with the rest of my hand, and then as I'm holding it down, rake up on it. So you can get some dead notes, kind of Hendrixy, but then you're hitting a lot of chord shapes too. And then that's when I like to throw in those double stops with random chord shapes to do fun stuff like that. So you can be it's really psychedelic.
Yeah.
It's just it's lush, but it's not just chords. It's you can screw around with it.
A lot of embellishments on it.
Yeah. I like that. I think it's fun.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Especially with Fortune Teller, because there's just two of us. It kind of helps keep it sometimes. Sometimes you just need to shred.
To keep the groove going.
Yeah, but to just have there be some fullness there.
Yeah. I always ask my guests, what's something when you come home from work that you just like to play when you pick up your guitar and you just want to play, you don't want to write or anything?
I usually sit down with my acoustic, and I don't know, I like writing kind of soft stuff. It's weird. I'll sometimes I was working on this the other day where it's just
using some out there chords. I noticed a major seventh. Oh, let's break that one down.
So it's basically you're hitting the C on the A string, and then you're going up to the E, and then you're just leaving the G, and then you'll play the 3rd fret on the B string.
It's a 6th chord, but then you add 9.
Yes,
I believe,
that.
If anyone cares.
And then I'll go up to, it's a C shape, but then you'll put your pinky up onto that
a C7
that C,
or
yeah.
a D7.
And then for that part, I'll go to a G major 7, and then I'll start. This is kind of weird, but I'll like to start on the wrong chord, but do those things the little embellishments where you're fluttering, but have it it starts off almost as an embellishment and then resolves back into the real chord. So it'll be so. So I'll start on that A minor, but to me it always feels I want to
go to the 7th, yeah.
And then when you do that, in chord shapes too, I like to slide with them a lot. So
So he's taking a minor 7th chord that a lot of people learn pretty early on.
Yeah, it's pretty basic.
In the open position, and you just sliding it up to I guess that'd be a B7, but you keep the G in there. It's interesting.
Right.
Cool.
It's really easy and fun for me to look good if I leave a lot of open notes in chords, because you can slide around with them, but it's still there's always a note that's holding the feeling down, but you can embellish it as much as you want. And you can get creative whether you're R-barring something and doing it, or having open notes be the holding down the fort to where you can
It's interesting. The last thing I'll say about like those chords you just played is that they're like, you hit that C, it's nice, okay, it's your starting point, and you hit a D7. And I don't know if you knew this, but that's like almost like a 2-5-1 kind of thing. No, it's not at all. Well, kind of, because this a C major is like the relative major of A minor, which is a 2 of G.
Right.
And then you hit the D7, which always, it wants to go back to the G major, and that's interesting that like you didn't you definitely didn't write it thinking
I don't
about that, but you came out that way.
It just grew up with me like trying to like learn songs that like you'd hear the chord changes like that, like I don't know, and just like listening
like a caveman would
exactly,
would
yeah, like a caveman, and then
just let me know he's a really good friend of mine, my best friend.
I've never met this man, and I'm really offended. But yeah, just like learning songs, and then just kind of like screwing around with them, and like the more you do that and get comfortable with it, it's almost kind of like a lot of the times, like at practice, you'll show me something and be like, "This is what it is." Technically, I'm like, I don't know what that is, but like I know what it is.
Yeah.
I know what it is. I know how to like play it, or like I know the scale that it's in, but I don't actually like know what to call it.
Like I said before, it only matters if it sounds good.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter if it's right.
You just got to be insane.
You gotta be insane. In order to play guitar, you heard it here, folks. You gotta be insane. That's a good note to go out on. Thank you very much, Giovanni, Jebediah, Jeb as I know you, for coming in, sir.
Thank you very much, Ethan.
Been a pleasure. Check out Fortune Teller. I think they're releasing an album sometime in 2020. We'll see. But thank you again for coming on. This has been Licks and Tricks with Ethan Mackowick. That was a really good one.
Was that actually? I didn't know if I looked.